Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC Fight Night Paris Ciryl Gane versus Serghei Spivac just ended, and this is going to be my full card post-fight. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you my reaction and analysis to the result. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Jacqueline Cavalcanti versus Zarah Fairn. Ew, what an ugly fight this was. Jacqueline Cavalcanti, I thought she won 30-27. She just landed some decent leg kicks, landed some decent shots upstairs, but Zarah Fairn hasn't won a fight in damn near 6 years. I didn't expect her to get a win here, but I expected her to actually try. She kind of just plodded forward and threw some shots at nothing but air and got outstruck, and Cavalcanti wasn't being super aggressive or putting out a lot of volume. Fairn, even though she was getting outstruck, never really looked for a takedown, even though she had a significant size advantage. And this fight ended up getting moved from 135 to 140. I'm assuming because of her, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But this fight was super uneventful, not very entertaining, and Cavalcanti gets it done basically with her striking, gets it done via decision. Moving up on the card, we had Basharat versus Kleydson Rodrigues. What a fight this was while it lasted. Basharat winning via first round arm triangle. Kleydson Rodrigues landed an early head kick. Then Basharat got a takedown, but Kleydson Rodrigues was so fast, he got his hips out from underneath and he was in a sprawl position in literally like 0.2 seconds. So I don't even know if it actually counted as a takedown. Then Basharat kind of like, reversed a little bit, ended up on top. Ended up getting the full mount, but not doing a whole lot of damage. And then Rodrigues exploded out of it. They got back to their feet. And Basharat landing a couple good shots, gets a takedown, gets a single leg takedown, controls him in half guard, immediately starts throwing a little ground and pound shots, immediately locks up an arm triangle and finishes him in the first round. Beautiful performance from Basharat. Kleydson Rodrigues, super explosive, super dangerous. I thought Basharat would probably win via decision or maybe submit him or finish him in the later rounds. And Rodrigues looked super explosive and athletic in this fight. And, Basharat was able to go out there and get it done, and to finish him in the first round via arm triangle. Very impressive. The striking looked good. He only really got clipped with the one head kick. Takedowns were timed very, very well. And I was super impressed with Basharat. Gets it done in the first round via arm triangle. Can't wait to see who he fights next. I want to see him get a big step up in competition. The bantamweight division is just filthy. The fact that guys like Basharat are hanging out the outside of the top 15. I mean, Farid may be top 20 at this point, I guess. But he's a very good fighter, very interesting prospect to watch in the bantamweight division, and went out there and made quick work of Kleydson Rodrigues. Moving up on the card, we have Nora Cornolle versus Joselyne Edwards. This one is going to be very controversial for a lot of you guys. Honestly, this fight was so boring, it was hard for me to pay razor close attention to it. But essentially, I scored the first 2 rounds for Nora Cornolle, and I scored the third round for Joselyne Edwards. But I have no problem, honestly. If you want to say that Joselyne Edwards took 2 out of those 3 rounds, maybe she took 2 and 3, I really don't blame you. I just thought in the first round, Cornolle was landing some good leg kicks, landed some good shots. She got taken down, but no real damage. She was controlled for a bit, gets a reversal, ends up on top. Second round, Edwards took her down early, had a lot of control time, but literally did no damage. No damage. And then towards the end of the round, Cornolle, maybe the last minute and a half of the round, she worked back to her feet. There was a head and arm throw, but she was doing them so sloppy that Cornolle even took her back a little bit towards the end of the second round, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And then in the third round, there was more grappling from Joselyne Edwards, more control time, even had her back. It wasn't looking good for Cornolle in the third round. Looks like she might get submitted rear naked choke. She got back up. Joselyne Edwards was exhausted. And Joselyne Edwards, her cardio really failed her in this fight. But I don't think it was a robbery. A lot of people were saying, robbery. I just didn't see a robbery here. Again, it was very hard to pay close attention to this fight because it was garbage. Joselyne Edwards had a lot of control time. I thought she clearly lost the first round, even though she had a significant amount of control time in the first round. But I just thought when they were on the feet and even in the clinch at some points, Cornolle was landing some good elbows in the clinch, some good knees in the clinch. And I thought, okay, Cornolle didn't do a whole lot of damage in the third round, so she probably lost it, plus the rear naked choke for Joselyne Edwards. But I have no problem giving Cornolle the first and second round. In the second round, Cornolle got controlled for like 3.5 minutes, but there was really no good ground and pound and no real damage done at all by Joselyne Edwards, and it's damage-based scoring. So Cornolle, I think those short elbows in the clinch, some knees in the clinch, some decent leg kicks on the feet, and I don't remember exactly how much damage she did in the second, but I thought when it was standing, when it was in the clinch, I thought Cornolle did more damage in the first 2 rounds. So I gave her the first 2 rounds. I think some judges had it 30-27. I don't hate the scorecard, but at the end of the day, you have to realize just laying on top of someone does not score points in MMA scoring anymore. In modern scoring, control time does not equal anything unless the rest is equal. And I thought maybe in the 3rd round it was kind of close and Edwards had, some good positions. But even towards the end of the 3rd round, I think that's when Edwards gave up her back completely and almost got finished herself. Cornolle as well ended up giving up her back completely in the 3rd round as well. But this was just a horribly low-skilled fight with not a lot of damage done. And I have no problem with Nora Cornolle getting the decision. 30-27, maybe not. 29-28 is how I would have scored it. The first 2 rounds going to Nora Cornolle. Moving up on the card, Ange Loosa versus Rhys McKee. Ange Loosa came out and just was fighting super aggressive, was smashing Rhys McKee over and over and over again with the right hand in the first round. Got him down. McKee got up, started to land some decent shots towards the end of the first round, and it seemed like, okay, maybe Loosa's slowing down a little bit. Maybe Rhys McKee's going to come on strong. Second round, Loosa mixed in the grappling, got some takedowns. He got a takedown, I think, early in the second round. Got him up against the fence. Rhys McKee's using the fence to get up. And then he just starts getting smashed by Loosa up against the fence badly. And it reminded me of Dricus du Plessis versus Darren Till. If you guys remember, Darren Till kind of pinned up against the fence, just getting smashed by Dricus. That's kind of what was happening in this fight. Loosa just destroyed him in the second round. Just absolutely murdered him in the second round. I thought Loosa might gas out after the second round. Doesn't get the finish. Very close to getting that second round TKO. Third round, Loosa was kind of winning early. He was looking tired. It was definitely getting a little bit closer. Loosa was using grappling in the third round, looking for takedowns. I think he got one takedown in the third round as well. But midway through the third round, or maybe towards the last 2 minutes of the third round, so a little bit further than the midway point, you had McKee kind of shuck him to the ground a little bit. I don't know what happened in that exchange, but then it just seemed like Loosa was done for. And he was just kind of running for his life. Rhys McKee was going after him badly and landing good shots, was just lighting him up on the feet. I thought Rhys McKee might find that late stoppage in the third round, but he wasn't able to get it done. I actually had the second round at 10-8 for Ange Loosa. So the scoring, I think what I have, 29-27, I think is what I had. Rhys McKee stole the third round with that late flurry because he got very close to a finish. He was wrecking him for, I believe, the last 45 seconds of the third round. But overall, Ange Loosa was able to close the distance, even though having a massive reach disadvantage. And Rhys McKee, I feel like a lot of these Cage Warrior guys are just overhyped a bit because they're the UK prospects. For whatever reason, they just get overhyped a bit. And I think Ange Loosa went out there and got it done, was the better grappler, was the better striker. Didn't maybe not have the better cardio, but honestly, he might have had the better cardio, but the output was just so insane that he wasn't able to go through that third round without getting completely gassed and almost getting finished himself, because he went for that finish and had that 10-8 second round. But overall, decent win for Ange Loosa. Gets it done over Rhys McKee. Rhys McKee's second stint in the UFC starts with a loss. Moving up on the card, Taylor Lapilus versus Caolán Loughran. Lapilus wins via unanimous decision. The first round, it was just outstriking him, landing some good straight shots, pumping the jab, landing a straight left. Loughran was trying to grapple. He got a takedown towards the end of the round, but did nothing with it. Second round, Loughran was able to get a takedown, control him a bit, controlled him for about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of the round, did a little bit of damage with the ground and pound. You had Lapilus get up towards the end of the second round. He looked tired. He looked exhausted. Was worried now about the takedown threat. He was kind of just backing up against the fence. Didn't really land a whole lot of shots in the second round. And I had a clear second round for Loughran. So I had it 1-1 going into the third. Third round was a very weird round to score because Loughran was just spamming takedowns nonstop. Not getting them, but holding them against the fence. But I think really what won this fight for Lapilus was in the clinch up against the fence while he's defending these takedowns. He landed a couple good knees. He landed a couple good elbows. And then at the very end of the round, there was a moment where it looked like Loughran might have been dropped. And then there was a good 1-2 at the tail end of the round for Lapilus that I think won him the fight. I scored 1 and 3 for Lapilus. I scored round 2 for Loughran. And I really think that third round was tough to score initially because you basically just had one guy defending takedowns the whole time and no damage being really done. But I think those few clinch strikes that Lapilus landed, along with that 1-2 towards the end of the round that landed pretty well, it was like the last 5 seconds of the round, I think that really decided. And plus you had that moment where it looked like Loughran was dropped a bit, even though I'm not sure that he was. I didn't see a replay showing that he was, but he went down to the knee. I think he slipped kind of in an exchange. And I just think, honestly, Loughran looked, I don't want to say he looked horrible, but he didn't have the striking to keep up with Lapilus, and the straight punches were too much for him, and he's just being so predictable. He was relentless with the grappling, but he just did not have success with the grappling. He would find takedowns in open space, but Lapilus just kind of adjusted, ended up putting his back up against the fence, was able to defend very easily up against the fence. So outside of that long control time in the second round, it just seemed like Loughran was just shooting it on takedowns and spamming big overhooks, looking for kill shots. Lapilus gets it done, unanimous decision. I think obviously both of them have a lot to work on, and this is Loughran's first loss. I think he was undefeated before this. But, you know, it was a short notice fight for both guys. They had matchups kind of switched around on them. And I think they both performed very well for the fact that they just found out they were fighting each other 3 days ago. But Lapilus, his straight shots and also the work in the clinch, when Loughran was just holding on for dear life and really not doing a whole lot, and the ref was looking at him and clapping a bit, those moments where he threw a couple knees won him this fight. I had it 29-28 for Lapilus. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card, Morgan Charriere versus Manolo Zecchini. This fight ended in the first round. Charriere with a first round TKO. Fight was fun while it lasted. You had Zecchini throwing some good shots, throwing some good power shots, landing some leg kicks. But Charriere had very good movement, was getting out of the way, was throwing back at will. And then you had Charriere land a nasty body kick. And you seen Zecchini was affected by it. He started to circle around. Boom, Charriere lands another body kick. And then you see Zecchini get a little bit more urgent, start circling around. Charriere then lands a teep kick. Basically melts Zecchini, starts to fall to the ground, but then kind of starts to back up and doesn't go to the ground. And then Charriere just rushes forward and throws another heavy body kick. The ref at this point is coming in to try to stop the fight. And he throws like one punch as Zecchini goes to the ground. It was over. The body kicks completely shut him off. Filthy performance from Morgan Charriere. Looked very aggressive, looked very powerful, looked super crisp on the feet. The head movement looked good. The speed looked good. The power looked good. Obviously, Manolo Zecchini, one of those guys making his UFC debut. There was a lot of debutantes on this card, but still, I think super impressive the way he just absolutely ran through him in the first round. And really, there was no glaring holes in his game in this fight. Again, we still have to see him tested against better competition as he moves up the ranks in the division. But overall, talk about a great UFC performance. And you know, one thing I want to mention, I should have already mentioned it by now, the UFC Paris crowd was amazing. I absolutely loved the crowd. They were super loud, super explosive, made the event more enjoyable to watch, and a great win from Morgan Charriere against Manolo Zecchini. Great win, absolutely destroyed him in the first round. Moving up on the card, William Gomis versus Yanis Ghemmouri. This is a fight that I really want to get into. So let me just tell you this, okay? Basically, it was a leg kick battle for the entire fight. William Gomis just throwing leg kicks all the first round. Same for Ghemmouri. You know, there was a couple left hands that Gomis landed throughout the fight. And I think Gomis had a head kick in the first round as well. Landed a good head kick in the first round. First round was clearly Gomis. Second round, more leg kicks, more okay shots, but not a lot with the hands. And, you know, this fight was just a leg kick battle for the first 2 rounds. Third round, more of the same, but really just more of a leg kick battle. Ghemmouri started trying to mix in the takedowns, but just couldn't get them. And then midway through the third round, Gomis throws a body kick, teep kick, whatever you want to call it, to the belt line. And it ends at the belt line, but the way up it grazes the cup, and the way down it really grazes the cup and completely moves the cup. Ghemmouri reacts. He acts like he got, you know, hit in the nuts, and he has a big reaction. He turns around. Meanwhile, the ref's screaming, fight, keep fighting, keep fighting. He turns around. I don't even think he's hearing the ref. I don't think he's paying attention to the ref. He just got hit in the nuts. The ref waves it off, says it's a third-round TKO for William Gomis. This, I think, was one of the most egregious calls I've ever seen. It needs to be appealed immediately, and Michael Bisping needs to be fired from commentary. I don't understand when people watch these low blow replays and they see where the strike ends and they say, okay, it wasn't a low blow. In my opinion, and the way I believe it's supposed to be enforced based on the rules, if it touches the cup, it is a low blow. It doesn't matter if it grazes it on the way up or grazes on the way down. And one thing we keep hearing by Michael Bisping and a lot of fans, and we hear it by Joe Rogan, seems like every single pay-per-view that he shows up for, is, oh, that landed in the belt line. That landed in the belt line. It can land in the belt line, and it can still graze the cup. And it drives me nuts that people act like only one can be true. They can both be true. And in this case, regardless if you want to talk about how hard it landed on the cup, Yanis Ghemmouri's cup clearly moved. He clearly moved. It clearly moved. It clearly affected him. The body kick, it's not like it landed on the solar plex and we could say, oh, it was definitely going to be finished and he was faking a nut shot. Now, maybe he wanted to break, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it touched the cup. That is indisputable. That is indisputable. It touched the cup. For those of you who actually have nuts, which seems like Bisping, I knew he was missing an eye, but I didn't know he was also missing, a set of nuts as well. It can be the smallest hit that can cause severe pain. So I like to err on the side of caution. If a kick that normally wouldn't finish a fight grazes a cup and then now you're calling it a TKO and Bisping's co-signing it and saying that was clean, when we're literally watching in 1080p, the fact that it landed, disgusting. And I know people are going to say, well, this didn't change the outcome. And you're right. I think William Gomis won all 3 rounds. I think it should have went to a technical decision if they couldn't restart the fight. But at the end of the day, imagine had this been reversed. Imagine had this been in a Ciryl Gane, Serghei Spivac fight. Spivac lands the low blow. Imagine that. Imagine a result actually is overturned essentially because of this bad officiating. So we have to call it out. It doesn't matter that Gomis would have won anyway. It doesn't matter that he was going to win on the scorecard. They should have went to a technical decision. Imagine had the roles been reversed and the winning fighter is now the losing fighter via TKO because a brain-dead 75-year-old ref and Michael Bisping on commentary are saying, you know what, and I know he doesn't have anything to do with the actual decision, but I'm just saying, decides that, oh, well, I don't think it was a low blow. And the ref was so confident. He said, no, it definitely didn't hit. And Ghemmouri's like, what? And you watch the replay, it clearly hit. It clearly hit. I don't care what anyone says. Indisputable. Bullshit TKO for William Gomis. He should have won decision. He probably would have won 30-27 decision. But bullshit call by that referee. And if I'm Yanis Ghemmouri, I outright appeal that fight. And I appeal it because that should not be a TKO loss. Moving up the card, we have Volkan Oezdemir versus Bogdan Guskov. Volkan Oezdemir landing some good heavy leg kicks early. Starts landing some hard left hands. Guskov had some moments where he landed a couple big shots on Oezdemir. Got a little bit of respect, maybe 2 or 3 big shots. Then, Volkan just started landing heavy left hands. There's kind of a scramble a little bit. Guskov gets caught with a nasty uppercut, short uppercut. Oezdemir has nasty power in a short span, especially in the clinch. We've seen it for many years. Drops Guskov, looks for the finish, starts pounding him out on the ground. And then basically Guskov keeps moving, and the ref's not stopping it. And it's not, Guskov's moving where it shouldn't be stopped. And Volkan Oezdemir says, you know what, I'm not going to punch myself out. Boom, let me lock up this rear naked choke. Volkan Oezdemir wins via first round rear naked choke. Great win for Oezdemir. I don't know where this puts him in the division because Guskov making his UFC debut. But Oezdemir, it's kind of been on the decline a little bit. And I thought maybe this could be the fight where he completely falls off. Goes out there, gets a first round finish and a nasty win. And absorbed some damage, took some shots, looked clean, had good leg kicks in this fight. Had a very high fight IQ to realize I'm not going to gas myself out with ground and pound shots. He gets it done. First round rear naked choke. Volkan Oezdemir, there should be an interesting fight in the light heavyweight division coming up for him very, very soon. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the main card, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Thiago Moises. 2 nut shots early for Benoit Saint-Denis. Lands, he's throwing body kicks. They graze Thiago Moises' cup. People are acting like, I think the first one, people acted like, no, I think it was the second one. First one, it was clean, clearly hit the cup hard. Second one, it was kind of similar where it kind of grazed and went into the belt line. And people were like, oh, what about this one? I thought it was 2 nut shots that grazed the cup. They should have both been called nut shots. I'm surprised Benoit Saint-Denis didn't get a point deducted because it happened so quickly. But Benoit Saint-Denis just all over Thiago Moises, just lighting him up on the feet, swarming him up against the fence. But Moises was staying tactical and throwing good hooks and counters. And he got a little bit of Benoit Saint-Denis' respect because at first he didn't have any of the respect. Then Benoit Saint-Denis, once he ate some shots from Thiago Moises, got a takedown, beat him up badly, cut him open. You had Moises kind of scrambling for knee bars, got back to his feet. It was a 10-9 first round for Benoit Saint-Denis. Second round, Benoit Saint-Denis, more of the same, kind of being a little more explosive, but still kind of slowing down a bit. He's being super explosive, but started to slow down because he's being super aggressive. Got a takedown on Moises early. Moises gets back up. Moises got a takedown. Benoit Saint-Denis scrambles right out of it. Then he starts swarming him up against the fence again. Throughout this entire fight, landing good inside leg kicks on Thiago Moises, backing him up against the fence. Moises throwing some shots, throwing some hooks, looking to land, not really landing a whole lot. But you had as soon as Benoit Saint-Denis got up from Thiago Moises' takedown, you had Benoit Saint-Denis. His name is 3 names to pronounce, but he lands a nasty standing elbow, and it seemed like that just wilted Thiago Moises. And then from there, Moises dragged him to the ground, beat him up on the ground. It was like Moises would get back to a knee, start to try to get back up, get smashed some more, and eventually he just went down to his hands and knees, and he was just getting brutalized by Benoit Saint-Denis. And honestly, could have been stopped earlier. He was just getting absolutely smashed on the ground badly. Benoit Saint-Denis, it looked like Moises quit, but almost in a good way. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, he just gave up because he didn't want to be there, but it was like he had taken so much damage, all he could do was cover up. And the stamina wasn't there anymore. Benoit Saint-Denis was all over him, just smashing him on the ground. And he's just laying on his hands and knees. Benoit Saint-Denis finally gets the second round TKO. Referee finally steps in. Bit of a late stoppage, in my opinion. But Benoit Saint-Denis surging up the ranks. He called out the loser of Ghemmouri versus Fiziev, or the loser of Dariush versus Tsarukyan, which is not official, but people have kind of speculated about. I love those call-outs. Benoit Saint-Denis is an absolute savage. The kicks are crazy. He does leave himself open to counters quite a bit, but, you know, in this fight, it didn't cost him. And he even showed great grappling with Thiago Moises, who has excellent jiu-jitsu. So, was willing to grapple with him when he's getting caught with shots. His corner was telling him not to brawl. He was mixing it in very well, and his stamina looked very good for the amount of output he had. So, I was very impressed with Benoit Saint-Denis, and this was his toughest opponent to date. So, he gets it done. He goes out there and stops Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises went 4 rounds with Islam Makhachev. Benoit Saint-Denis finishes him in 2. So great win for Benoit Saint-Denis. Moving up on the card, the co-main event, Manon Fiorot versus Rose Namajunas. I'll just tell you outright. I scored a 30-27 for Manon Fiorot. It was a unanimous decision for Manon Fiorot. I think 2 judges had it 29-28. 1 judge had it 30-27. I don't know what round people are giving to Rose Namajunas. Other people were saying this in the chat. I've seen people saying it on Twitter. It wasn't a super eventful fight. Basically, it was Fiorot just jabbing her, landing a couple good, left hands. Rose shot her on a couple takedowns throughout the fight, but just got stuffed. Really didn't have anything. At the end of the first round, Fiorot landed a good shot where it kind of stumbled Rose a little bit, stung her. Clear 10-9. Second round, closer, but Fiorot just kind of snapping her head back with the jab. In the second round, you had this weird moment where Rose somehow had something and then threw it on the floor, and then the ref picked it up and threw it out of the cage, and we never got clarification on what that was. There was a weird moment in that second round where Manon Fiorot slipped and ended up on the ground, and Rose tried to capitalize on it, but nothing really happened there either. Basically, second round, Fiorot just snapping her head back with jabs. Punching a lot of air too, but Rose just not able to close the distance, and the power differential was significant. And then the third round, Fiorot was just out jabbing her again. Rose was being more aggressive. Fiorot landed a couple really good shots towards the end. She landed the jab and then would throw a couple good combinations and land hard on Rose, but never really rocked her significantly throughout the fight. And this fight wasn't all that impressive in my opinion. And I know Rose Namajunas is a former champion and she's a very good fighter, but I just feel like Fiorot could have done more. And there was a lot of swinging and landing on air in this fight, whether it be from Rose Namajunas or Manon Fiorot. But I'll tell you this right now, this fight proved to me Rose doesn't belong at flyweight. The power differential was significant. It was very, very significant. The only thing Rose was landing in this fight that was having any effect was leg kicks, and she refused to throw a lot of volume. So Manon Fiorot goes out there, beats Rose Namajunas, 30-27 decision, in my opinion. Clear unanimous decision on the judges' scorecards. I thought maybe there was a chance the judges could mess it up because 2 and 3 were close enough for judging errors with how bad judging is. But I don't think there's any way you should be able to score this fight for Rose Namajunas. I know Jamal Hill, I know he calls out Ariel Helwani for YouTube clout. He said Rose Namajunas won. He thought Rose Namajunas pieced her up. And that's just factually inaccurate. I don't know what fight he was watching. I don't know if he's using drugs in his time off with the injury or what. But that's just crazy to even, suggest. Second round, the only piece of damage that happened to Manon Fiorot in this entire fight, basically, was a head clash that cut open Fiorot on the side of her head. She was bleeding. I was worried that would affect the judges as well, but the referee stopped it, called it a clear head clash. That was the only damage that Fiorot wore at the end of this fight. That's the only thing. Meanwhile, Rose Namajunas just looked beat up badly. Her face was all busted up. She's just getting jabbed the whole fight. Her head was snapping back, and she just really didn't have a whole lot of success, not really being able to close the distance. Manon Fiorot was very, very strong, able to stuff the takedowns, and Rose just wasn't able to get her down in any capacity because Manon Fiorot is super athletic, super strong, much bigger. Rose didn't even look any bigger at 125. So I think she probably needs to head back down to strawweight. If not, it's probably time for her to retire. I know she's not mentally all there, or seems like she's not mentally all there. In the fight game, she's had moments where she's thought about retirement. This may be the time that she finally retires. Manon Fiorot saying she deserves a title shot. I don't think so. Let's pump the brakes on that. I think this win over Rose Namajunas is somewhat impressive, but I think Erin Blanchfield, even though it wasn't the best performance, I think it was a better win over Talia Santos because I think Talia Santos was just more impressive for the weight class for Erin Blanchfield to go out there and get the job done against her. So I think Erin Blanchfield should be next in line, should be number one contender. But overall, the only damage Fiorot took was the headbutt, which bled profusely throughout the fight, but ultimately it didn't really affect the fight because it wasn't like dripping in her eyes. Moving on to the main event, we have Ciryl Gane versus Serghei Spivac. Ciryl Gane went out there and just beat the brakes off of Spivac. Ciryl Gane wins via second round TKO. And in the first round, as soon as I seen these guys stand across from each other, I was like, damn, I think I might have picked the wrong guy. Spivac's striking is so atrocious. His movement is so atrocious. He literally looked like he'd been training striking with Juliana Miller and Juliana Pena. The combinations looked horrible. He looked scared on the feet. He shot in on 2 takedowns in the first round, didn't get them. Ciryl Gane was worried about those takedowns. There was one point in time where Spivac was looking for a takedown and Ciryl Gane almost jumped out of the cage because he was so worried about the takedown. But ultimately, Gane sprawled him with ease or defended him with ease, and Spivac was just kind of plotting forward, having trouble to close in the distance. Ciryl Gane was just beating him up, peppering the legs, pumping the jabs. Spivac couldn't block anything. He would mix in like 75% power shots. Spivac landed like 3 good shots this entire fight in exchanges where he caught Gane on the chin. Shot in, I think, on a total of 2 takedowns, and then one time in the second round he tried to clinch up. Ciryl Gane was having none of it. Ciryl Gane just systematically broke him down. Knees to the body, ripping to the body with his hands, just busting him up badly. And then in the second round, it seemed like Spivac was already starting to get tired. He was battered. It seemed like with every shot he was grimacing like he did not want to be in there at all. And then Gane landed a body shot, and then it seemed like Spivac just shut off from there. He's up against the fence, just covering up, like in a weird like sideways position where he had his side pressed up against the fence. And then Gane is just peppering him with shots, landing to the body, ripping upstairs. You could see Spivac was worried about the body because his arms were like going up and down, up and down. And then for the finish, when Gane's just swarming up against the fence, the ref is telling Spivac, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. And Spivac is just there covering up, just squatting up and down. It just looked like he was doing squats up against the fence. And Gane's just ripping him up, ripping him to the body, just beating him up. Eventually, he finishes it with a flurry with like 3, 4, 5 punches that looked like they were almost to the back of the head. I went back and rewatched them. They caught a bit of the side of the head as well. But Gane's got to be a little bit careful, man. There's been a couple fights where he's come dangerously close to finishing a fight with back of the head shots. Junior Dos Santos, those elbows, questionable. Some of the hammer fist against Tai Tuivasa, questionable. And now against Serghei Spivac, kind of the same thing towards the finish, but these weren't as bad in my opinion. I don't think any of them were particularly bad because it's catching a little bit of the side of the head. I went back and watched them in slow-mo just to be sure. But Spivac, I got to be honest, I don't know if Gane looked good or Spivac looked horrible. How bad is Derek Lewis? That's what I need to know. How bad is Derek Lewis? Spivac looked completely out of his element, and he couldn't close the distance. He didn't look athletic. He didn't look like he had cardio. Didn't look like he could take a shot to save his life because, I mean, every shot that landed, he literally looked like somebody stuck a finger in a wood chipper. He took his finger and forcibly stuck it in a wood chipper. He was grimacing up against the fence with every single shot. He wasn't throwing back. When he did throw back, he looked like Juliana Miller. This has to be one of the worst performances I've ever seen, but we have to give credit to Ciryl Gane. He made him look bad, but just seeing that athletic Ciryl Gane against the polar bear and Serghei Spivac, and once he couldn't get a hold of him, and every time he tried to close the distance, Gane would step in with a knee to the body and pump the jab and then start peppering the legs from distance and circle out and make Spivac try to chase after him, and he was chasing right after him and not cutting him off. Gane made Spivac look like he didn't belong in the UFC at all. It was a horrible performance from Spivac. Great performance by Ciryl Gane. The division's kind of in a funky place because you have Jones and Stipe fighting for the title in November. No matter who wins that fight, the winner may retire, the loser may retire. Then you basically have Sergey Pavlovich, you have Tom Aspinall, you have Ciryl Gane, kind of all in the mix. So I think depending on what happens, if Jones doesn't retire, it should be Jones versus Pavlovich, and you should do Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall for the #1 contender. But if Jones does retire, you have a 3-man tie. I think you do Serghei, I almost said Serghei Spivac. You do Serghei Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall for the vacant belt in early 2024. But I wouldn't mind, even if they do Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane, co-main event of UFC 295. Why not? I know they already said Pavlovich is the backup, but now you have extra backups. I think they should do 2 heavyweight fights on the main card of UFC 295 in November. I think that'd be perfect. And, you know, they can decide what to do if someone pulls out, because I don't think Jones on short notice, he's not fighting Pavlovich. It's just not happening. But you basically, if Jones does win and retires, or Stipe wins and retires, then you have kind of a 3-man, Ciryl Gane, Tom Aspinall, and Serghei Pavlovich all in the mix at heavyweight for the heavyweight belt. But ultimately, it was a decent card. I did really good on picks tonight. I've been really hot for the last 4 weeks on picks. Unfortunately, I messed up with the main event. I picked Spivac, which is disappointing now looking back at it. I just didn't trust Ciryl Gane's grappling. We've seen tonight he's improved on it a bit, but I just don't know. I don't know if he can still defend a takedown against a guy who's more athletic than Spivac, because Spivac's not athletic at all. But overall, the only picks I got wrong was Spivac, and I also got Loughran wrong, which that was kind of close. Maybe you could have given it to him. I wouldn't have gave it to him. But either way, I went 9 out of 11 for UFC Paris, so I'm happy with that. But Ciryl Gane gets it done. It seems like they're trying to set up the Tom Aspinall fight. They talked about it in the post-fight, so maybe that's the fight they booked. Ciryl Gane kind of said, I don't want to fight Tom Aspinall. I want to fight for the title. They may end up doing Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall for the heavyweight title, but I don't know, where does that leave Pavlovich? Because Pavlovich deserves it more than both of them. But that's a topic for another video. Let me know what you guys thought of the fights tonight. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.